Okay, women's tennis. This one I was excited about because these athletes were playing Wimbledon. They were playing the US Open, the French Open. They were on the international team. I mean, really, let me ask you guys this. Who won the Worlds in swimming about 2 months ago? Anybody know? No? Who won the French Open? Women, what female player won the French Open? Other than Bill, who won? Lena. Right? Lena. Exactly. Working with these athletes was exciting because they were known at the national level. Plus, I was better able to connect to them because having traveled and worked internationally, they were very, very different than the majority of the athletes who had never been out of China other than to compete. So with the women's tennis team, the Minister of Sport China, who's the gentleman in the middle, came out before they would even let us touch and did the introduction. So we were introduced to the team by the head of Sport China. The woman to his right is Sun Jingfeng. Sun Jingfeng is a national hero in China. In the late 60s, she outspoke against the Japanese. And she was a part of an Olympic volleyball team in the late 60s that actually won gold, putting China for the first time on the world circuit, where she was publicized nationally, speaking out against the Japanese occupation of China during the war. And so in the country, this woman was loved and coveted. You can see her in this picture. They were going crazy coming into the Olympics. The stress level the ministers were dealing with was absolutely absurd. The pressure was high. So working with her team, we were invited to come out and work with these athletes, which was my biggest honor. And we literally were driving 200 miles per hour from Beijing. In the morning, we worked with the women's swim team. In the afternoon, they literally shut down a highway. They shut down a highway during the time that we were traveling so that we could get where we needed to be. It was 2 hours away and we were getting there in an hour. And they shut down the highway for us to do this. So that's how important they began to deem the intervention of the skier. 200 miles, it was scary. This was the first time a foreigner had ever stepped on to the professional tennis training base. That's the facility. That was the view from my window. It was awesome. So, working with the team, we worked with every one of the girls on the women's team. We worked with Yanzi, we worked with Zhang Jie. These two were really exciting to work with. Yanzi had neck and shoulder pain. She also had some major emotional stress coming into the games as she was really looking to perform. We developed an amazing relationship and became really, really good friends. And there were issues in her compatibility with her partner. We were able to run 12 sessions applying the biorhythm compatibility program to work with the athletes in order to better their relationship physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, in order to be able to compete better. And both of the girls came out and just played unbelievably. And their coach described their performance after we started working with them, releasing the emotional stress. Their coach described their performance as rejuvenating. And the girls came out and they fought furiously. Now remember, the Chinese women are typically body type, much smaller than those that they would be competing against. And the girls came out and they won bronze at a national event in tennis. This was huge. This was groundbreaking. From this team that they didn't expect would win. Now Sun Tiantian, working with this athlete was interesting because she was such an amazing athlete, such an amazing composed player. However, she was coming into the end of her career. She wasn't so interested in competing again at this Olympics as she had won gold with her partner in Athens. Working with her, what we saw with tennis was lots of neck and shoulder pain problems. What we found as an amazing tool for resolution was working with the TMJ release panel. the foci panel. Now, a wonderful thing about the TMJ foci panel that I was able to learn from Bill during that period of time was that after you've initially scanned and treated foci, and treated all the foci within the TMJ panel, you can scan again. And when you scan again, you go to a different layer. And in fact, you keep scanning and releasing the foci until none appears after the scan total. When we applied the TMJ work in conjunction with the spinal work, as well as the craniosacral, consistently, each one of the women's tennis players had release of pain from the motion of serving, which was important because they were all serving about 10 miles an hour faster after we released the pain. It was fantastic to see. So Sun Tian wasn't very interested in competing. She had accomplished what she set out to. She won in Athens in 204, which was an amazing feat for Chinese women on the world circuit. So China was really coming up. And ultimately she knew this was to be her last show and wasn't very interested at all. At the same time, Peng Shui, who's now still on the international circuit, Peng Shui was her partner, and she was a fierce young competitor. So these two just had a complete mismatch of energy. There was a total incompatibility. One athlete on their way out, the other athlete certainly on the up and coming. And regardless of what we did working with these girls, short of their personal release and the release of pain, whereby we saw amazing results, we couldn't really do any major work. For me, where it got really exciting and interesting was working with this particular player, working with Lina. Lina had not been performing for a year and a half coming into these games. A year and a half earlier, she had blown out her knee, I believe at the US Open. And because she was a national athlete in China, once again owned by the state, she was forced to have her knee surgery in China by the government for publicity. She wanted surgery in Germany, where all the other girls on the circuit went for their surgeries. She wanted surgery in Germany. They would not allow her. So for a year and a half since the surgery, the pain in the knee did not subside because there was an emotional component. So we were brought to work with Lina based on initially her pain and the lack of her emotional intensity in the game. Who you see there in the picture is the head coach of tennis, and behind him is a TCM, a doctor of Chinese medicine, who was brought in from Manchester United. He is the doctor of Chinese medicine for the Manchester United soccer team. He was paid over $250,000 to come in to work with Lina, particularly Lina, for the games, because China really wanted to get her functioning again. However, his work had accomplished virtually nothing because nothing was able to address the emotional component. And what we saw through the device were two very discernible emotional stress factors. One was the anger at the state, was the anger at China. Two is well depicted in our next slide. The second issue that we saw emotionally was her husband. Isn't that always a woman's issue? You know? Like really, right? Okay, so the second issue was her husband, whom was also her coach. See, everyone in this room gets it. The Chinese didn't seem to. What we saw was that her husband, being also her coach, that she was never getting off the court. She never had downtime. Yeah. And that was very easily discerned through the device. And because we were able to understand the nature of these emotional issues and bring them forward, we were able to address them. And amazing that they didn't figure this out on their own. But in this picture, what you see is, in fact, the husband moving out of the room. We discussed with the head coach, based on the information we discerned through the skio, we discussed with the head coach that he could either serve as her husband or as her coach in this capacity up until the games. but as both, it was not going to work. And so this was him moving out of the room. You can see the smile on her face. And you can see the relationship that we've built based on this. She was very, very happy to have her space restored and herself understood. Now also with Lena, there was the issue of the knee pain, which there again in about 10 sessions we were able to offer her full release of symptoms. And she came out brand new. I mean, if you watch the Beijing Games, look at that face. There was an intensity that the coaches had not seen her with ever. She was a changed athlete. She came out and she was pain-free, and she was all over the court in those games. Now, what was interesting was the coaches and Sun Jingfang were all very, very stressed by the Olympics because happenstance B, she drew the #1 seat in tennis, a Russian woman, I forget her name. She drew the #1 seat for first round. Second round was Venus Williams, who was not the #1 seed at the time, but probably #2, right? So she drew #1 and #2 in the tournament right off the bat. She destroyed them both in straight sets. She came out as a completely different athlete. Pain-free and achieving her peak potential. Now, at the Olympics, Lena placed 4th. She didn't medal, but this was by far one of my biggest success story, the skio's biggest success story in working with the Beijing Olympics. Now, after these games, because of the dialogue that the skio enabled us to open up, and the feelings which were unconscious for her, however, festering and causing major toxicity in her performance, because the device was able to discern those feelings and bring up and enable a dialogue between the two of us, Lena started to consider a whole new concept, and that was she could go private. This had never happened with a professional athlete in China. For example, if anybody follows NBA basketball and you've seen Yao Ming, the only 7'5" basketball player in the world, Yao Ming is owned by the government. 50% of his proceeds goes directly, be it from advertising contracts or actual direct pay from the team, goes to China. Surgeries, politics, everything is discerned by the government of China. There are no other athletes in the world which have to deal with these kinds of stressors. With Lena, we were able to understand her anger based on the stress in the knee, based on not being able to have her surgery, based on not being able to choose their coaches, based on a whole bunch of variables. You know, the iron fist in the velvet glove of the Chinese rule, right? Lena had the courage, and this commenced the week after the Olympics, okay? Through the work that was done dialoguing emotionally with her through the skio, Lena had the courage to leave the Chinese national team and go private. And what was amazing was Sun Jingfang, once again, we've already discussed her, she was the hero, right? Sun Jingfang, outspoken against the British back when Chinese did not speak out. Sun Jingfang supported her. She was the head of tennis. She supported her in the leaving of the team and promoted the idea to other athletes, professional athletes in China that would be playing on the international circuit. And this year, Lena was the first Chinese woman athlete to win a major Grand Slam event in the history of the sport. So that was pretty crazy and pretty exciting. And therein you can see the effect of skio at the level of national change. By enabling the dialogue, the release of emotional stress, you see national change happening in sports now, and it's due to the skio. So that's pretty amazing. In fact, we saw the impact of the skio in sports having the ability to affect national change through Lena's story. We profiled provincially and nationally 40% of all the athletes which we tested showed for heart rate instability and palpitation. We were able to profile, and this is where the SKIO was not just a unilateral tool working directly with an athlete. It enabled us to profile an entire sport program. And so at the end of sports, we were able to issue a report discussing the common stressors in sports in China. And we saw MSG toxicity through the device showing reoccurringly in China as a root cause of heart rate instability and insomnia. Because of the work done by the SKIO, national policy was set forward taking MSG off of all training bases in the country. MSG and any food preservative. And that's due to the ability for the SKIO to profile and work in so many multiple amazing ways. So we affected national change in that country in a very, very short period of time, which was just, an unbelievable experience. And I feel so very, very grateful. We're not even remotely close to done yet. I might be long-winded, but it's kind of cool. Anybody want to leave? With the device, I think through my presentation, and really you're seeing every athlete that we work with in therapy, SKIO plus athlete equal to gold. And I feel very, very blessed and grateful to have been a part of that. And so once again, a thank you goes out to Bill and everybody mentioned in that list, because we affected change in the world in the work that we did.
This is the story of Novak Djokovic and the SKIO. See, in 2009, before he was using the SKIO, after retiring to Roger Federer in Monte Carlo and during the semifinals, Novak had a history of ailments that interfered severely with his play. Novak was sick and tired of being sick and tired. He was plagued by a hip injury while engaged in a match with Tommy Roberto. Novak called 2 timeouts, claiming both injury and exhaustion. His next opponent, Andy Roddick, said that Novak was too quick to call a trainer. Novak had a reputation for being injured and tired, and he proceeded to list all the ailments that might be tormenting him. In 2009, during the Australian Open, Novak retired against Roddick during a quarterfinal match, citing exhaustion, muscle cramps, soreness. He was sick and tired of being sick and tired. He had a sore shoulder that limited his serve. Sick and tired and with shoulder pain, Novak hired a private SKIO therapist, Dr. Igor. Igor started treating him with the SKIO to help his oxygen transport. The SKIO detected his gluten sensitivity. Desiree sent him some sport formula and he responded well. He responded rapidly and went on a tear at the US Open. And then after that, the Angel team worked hard and the SKIO to fix his shoulder. He responded well, very well. Allergy work, breathing problems, muscle repair. The SKIO boosted his VAR hope and his performance went up and up. Research has shown an increase of 5% in the body electric factors with the SKIO that increase performance. Novak starts to win and win big. The SKIO helped him. After just a few weeks on the SKIO, it was a big difference. Novak became dominant. Stamina problems were a thing of the past. Coordination increased up 5%. Strength, 5% increase. Emotions became under control. Dr. Igor was working with him intimately every day on a day-to-day basis. Now, after the SKIO treatments, after he became focused, Novak leads the Serbs to a Davis Cup win. The SKIO was there to help all of them. Novak wins the Australian Open. Novak wins at Indian Wells, beating his archenemy Nadal. He wins at Miami, defeating Federer and Nadal. He wins at Madrid, beating Nadal on clay courts 5 times. Nadal wins at home in Serbia. He becomes focused, clear, stronger. He wins at Rome and Madrid. His mind, his emotions now more under control, his body tuned.
Showed early on why he's risen to the top of the rankings. And the Serb made the first breakthrough, winning the opening set after breaking Nadal for the first time. Nadal looked shaken. Uncharacteristic errors started to appear, and Djokovic was quick to pounce. Whatever the Spaniard threw at him, the new world #1 was more than equal to the task. Nadal was being made to look ordinary. Djokovic took just half an hour to win the second set. Errors once again appeared, and Djokovic broke to lead 5-4. From there, he served out to take the title for the first time, and was quick to taste the victory. It's his 5th win in a row against Nadal. What a way to start your reign as the new world #1. Bruce McKellar, Sky News.
I was born for something that I always worked for, and now I got my chance and I used it.
The voice of a champion, no doubt about it. Monday means Novak Djokovic can and will officially be calling himself the #1 player in men's tennis. The Serbian can also celebrate the fact he's just landed a first ever Wimbledon title after seeing off defending champion Rafa Nadal in Sunday's showpiece eye-catching finale at the All England Club just outside of London. Rafa starting to make some uncharacteristic errors as well. And Djokovic believes it's in the head. He knows at match point that this title is his for the taking. He seals it in 4, 6-4, 6-1, 1-6, 6-3. Novak Djokovic is the new Wimbledon champion, his first ever at the All England Club. A worthy winner as he celebrates a landmark career achievement. Truly phenomenal year for Novak. It continues in style. He's now 48-1 on the current year. This is by far his biggest success, though. The best day of his life, he called it, and his recent dominance over Rafa continuing too, with the Serbian star now having won all 5 meetings, would you believe, in finals this year with the young Mallorcan. This is Novak's second major of 2011 as well, having also won his second Australian Open crown at Melbourne back in January.
It's just amazing to be able to do that, in 3 days' time. I mean, all the 20 years of work and coming back to the places where I grew up and started playing tennis, and all comes back to me. But I'm living my dream, and this is something that I was born for, something that I always worked for, and now I got my chance and I used it.
I'd have to agree with you on that, Miles. I mean, Djokovic has been sensational, and we talked about the physical trainer doing the work, but also putting in the diet as well with being gluten-free. I think that's made a major benefit as well, because he has more energy, he's putting more time in, he travels with a doctor. So this guy right now, he is doing everything to the maximum. There's not one thing he's leaving unturned.
You mentioned the gluten, yeah, something that emerged recently. He discovered his allergy to it, so he's had to change his diet.
Yeah, and you and I were scrambling to find out what gluten was all about. In the very basic, just saps you of energy. Doesn't allow you to sort of absorb the minerals and the good things you need to operate at optimal efficiency. And that was always a problem with him, finishing long matches.
This is an Oriental warrior spot that Desiree taught him how to use.
To be even more aggressive. Just stunning hitting from Djokovic. The last.
He uses this to beat Federer. And now the story of Li Na.
And what she can bring to this final today, Virginia.
Well, she has just, improved so much. There's so much to be said for the way she hits a tennis ball. She hits it so early. I mean, she's just about got enough spin to...
There's a 20-year history of the skio helping some of the finest athletes in the world.
So well. So it takes away the time from the opponent. Her serve has improved. She's a tremendous athlete. I mean, I think she's playing so well.
This is Virginia Wade commenting on Li Na's incredible increase in performance, along with Greg Ruzetsky, former British #1.
A lot of those years were just not spent on the tennis court. So she's sort of re-energized too, and that final at the Australian Open, and then she said she was so happy, and then it was the Chinese New Year, so she was celebrating for a while. So she's only just sort of got herself back in peak condition this year.
Li Na was part of the Skio 2008 Chinese Olympic study. She had difficulty with her menses, and she was going to retire. She was sick and tired of being sick and tired. She got on the Skio. The menses problems, the menses disturbance vanished immediately. She performed well, and she beat Venus Williams in the Olympics. Her trainers got a QXCI and started using it in the Australian Open. An increase in her performance. Increased 5%, strength increased, coordination increased, stamina increased. Her aches and pains are removed. Move quicker with the Skio technology. It deals with injury repair.
He raced through the tiebreak to wrap up the title after 1 hour and 48 minutes.
She takes the French Open.
6-4, 7-6.
The Skio helps Li Na win. Osmosis is increased in a slight electrical field. The Skio makes a harmonious, auto-focused pulse that maximizes the effect, thereby maximizing osmosis and changing this all the time in an auto-focused way. All things depend on osmosis. When osmosis is increased, all things work better. 5% better. The Skio has been shown in experiments and clinical studies to increase performance, decrease pain, decrease injury time, increase osmosis, and make an athlete feel a little bit better and have a little bit better performance. The future of sports medicine is energetic. The future is Skio.